Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan. We're going to finish off our contract series. We're going to talk about defense again, but we're going to go to the back end, the coverage end of the Eagles defense. We have to start sort of talking about Eagles defense and other defenses differently. So we're going to do inside linebackers, which are mainly your coverage linebackers, run stopping linebackers. And then we'll also talk about cornerbacks, safeties, and Adam, that'll finish. That'll be, like we always say, the devil's in the details of the contracts, where we'll go through what everybody's making, all their bonuses and everything, and we'll get a good idea of how this thing looks for the Eagles. And then at the end, I'll make sure we do this on offense. What's the best value for the money? And as we finish off defense, we'll answer that question too.
That's a little hard. Well, actually, I have an idea.
Okay.
We'll get into why I think so, and a funny reaction when I got to the numbers on this player, because they weren't out when we dropped that show. They had not been out yet, so we had it first. And I remember this player. I had you guess about how much guaranteed money he had. You were wrong. You were 0 for 4. And then when I told you, you laughed. You go, "There's no way." I'm like, "Yeah, believe it or not."
Yeah, I still have trouble believing it. Yes, I know where you're going with that, and I like the selection there. So after today's podcast, as we move forward into next week, we'll start our NFC East preview series that we do with Greg Cosell, and we will break down each of the 4 teams over the next 2 weeks, starting next week. Monday, Thursday for the next 2 weeks. We'll do, I don't know if we have the order down yet. It'll be Washington, New York, Dallas, probably, then Philadelphia. So I mean, we'll end with the Eagles and then figure out what we want to do with the first 3. But I've been kind of peeking at the NFC East rosters myself, Adam, just to get ready. And there's some, we went through this when we did our draft of the NFC East offense and defense. There's some really good defensive players in the NFC East. I mean, cream of the crop, especially in the front 7 players in the NFC East.
Just think of Washington's 4 first-round picks.
Yep.
All played well together, because Payne has been a stud. He got a huge contract extension. He's really good. Jonathan Allen's been good from day one. Mm-hmm. Chase Young has been obviously majorly disappointing, and Montez Sweat, as your dog could tell you, has not been the player he should have been. Your dog.
Yes, that's my little fluffy one.
What is her name? What's your dog's name?
His name is Rico.
Rico. Oh yeah, Rico. I remember he's not a Pomeranian, is he?
No, he's a Havanese.
Havanese, okay.
So, and my kids when we brought him home, my kids wanted to name him either like Melon or Bubble, like some kind of little kid name. I'm like, no, he's Havanese. That's Cuban. So we're gonna give him a Spanish name. So I pulled veto power and named him Rico. So that's a little inside the Mosher family there. Here,
that's right. So getting back to this though, look, and now the Eagles don't have Hargrave, but they've got a lot of talented young players who we'll see how they play. Washington, in terms of first round talent, they got a ton of it, but they haven't all played together very well. It's actually been very rare when they've played all well together. Dallas has revamped their defensive tackle rotation. It's going to look different with Mozzie Smith and some other guys, and they've got some talented defensive ends. Yeah, and the Giants, Lawrence is incredible, no doubt, and Leonard Williams is very underrated, but that's pretty much it. So, but you're right. It is definitely a situation where these front 7s, particularly the front, they all offer something different and a lot of talent.
Yeah, I look forward to going into it deeply with Greg Cosell over that 2-week span, and that will pretty much take us into mid to late July, and then we'll start to get ready for training camp. And we've got some really fun shows lined up for that. We've also got some good podcasts lined up for our Patreon subscribers. We just recently did our Ask ITB live stream. Want to thank our participants in that. I always enjoy it. They get to know us a little bit. We wind up chopping it up on things that sometimes have nothing to do with the Eagles, and a little FaceTime with the people, our subscribers. So if you still want to get in on that, and I post them on our site when they're done. If you want to get on that, it's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. And Adam, of course, does his weekly chats on Discord for our Patreon subscribers every Wednesday. So that's a blast. And we get another extra podcast in per month. That's usually an interview with a former head coach or a scout or a GM or a player. And
we're working on something really big. Yeah, which is gonna, if we get it, it'll drop this weekend. But getting back to you definitely, if you're a Patreon subscriber, you're gonna want to be in the monthly chat. We definitely want you to understand how cool it is. So what happens is it's not just it's really it's a back and forth. It's more of a conversation. So for instance, I think Kevin, who was one of the guys in there, talked about the Eagles, going after all these injured players, and that brought up the discussion. Carl Stevenson brought up the situation of the really, quite frankly, this is our 6th season doing this. The most training camp battles, and by far, I don't think it's even comparable to any other year. They're both sides of the football. The punting situation, which we got into that, we actually talked like 5 minutes about that, or 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, we even went down a Penn State running back into the NFL rabbit hole, so that was fun. So shout out to Kevin and Carl.
It was really cool.
That. Yeah.
Really cool.
All right, listen, we told you last podcast, we're going to keep telling you about our friends. It's a new company that we're working with called Smart Labels. It's a company making inventory management simple and very affordable for small business owners. Here's how it works. You buy the Smart Labels QR code stickers on Amazon. When those stickers arrive, you just slap one on a container or a shelf. You download the Smart Labels app on your mobile device. You scan the code, and the app creates a digital container for you. You write down all the information about the items you're cataloging, and you take a picture, and that way you have all your inventory easily searchable in the palm of your hand. The sticker packs, they only cost $16, and the subscription is only $30 a year. It's less than $4 a month, folks. That's less than $3 a month. So get your Smart Label stickers on Amazon today. Math was never my strong point. That's why I'm doing this. So oh man, so we got a lot to get into on these contracts with defense. You want to start? Let's start. Like, we'd like to work from back to front. So we already did the edge rushers, the D tackles, and the D ends in the last podcast. We will start off with the stack linebacker, inside linebacker, coverage line. There's no real good definition for it. Stack is probably the best, because if you call them coverage linebackers, it sort of ignores the fact that they do have to stop the run. They're just sort of not the most important people.
No, they're definitely not coverage linebackers, because if you're a coverage linebacker, you're looked at as a nickel linebacker,
Right.
So yeah, I would. I mean, they can do it, but they're off the ball. We're stacked linebackers, and they're off the ball means they're not playing on the ball like a overhang player. So
you can call them coverage linebackers though, because in zone they have to cover their areas of zone. They're
right,
not great.
But but their first thing is their first opportunity is going to stop the run.
Stop the run, right,
and be cleaned up in front. That is a big deal here, which is can these D tackles clean these guys off, because they're so small, comparatively to other teams. And Nick Morrow will get his training camp weight. I know he won't be more than 225. He could be in the teens. So that's that's
no, come on, in the teens.
He could be 215, 218. Yeah,
I believe. Gosh, that's like a safety.
I know. Look, Cato June, who's a linebacker coach, I think, for the Colts, he played in the teens. He played at 215 to 218.
Yeah. Now he played in that Tampa 2, where you have those big, strong guys up in front of you. Man, 218. That's.
I know but I mean, Morrow's a former safety, so yeah, and Dean's probably 230. In that range? Yeah,
in that range, 230, 235. What was Kaiser White? I thought he was at least 220, wasn't he?
In the 220s, mid 220s, yeah, and another former safety. Yeah, isn't it interesting? And I know TJ Edwards, around 240, but he was an undrafted free agent. It's just interesting how they continue to look for these smaller guys. Now, Christian Ellis is big, he's bigger comparatively speaking.
Right.
I mean, around 6'3", but it's not like he's 250. Not that many teams have 250 linebackers now. They're generally in the 230s. That's kind of the way the league is transformed over the years.
Sure. And so, as we've mentioned on some other podcasts, Adam, Nick Morrow signed a very unique contract with the Eagles. You want to explain why that is?
Yeah. So, because you and I was not as dumbfounded as you were when we got the terms. See, this is what I think he did. He said, okay, where could I go where I can have a good chance to start?
Yes.
Okay. He's not. Could Christian Ellis or someone else beat him out? Wouldn't count it out, but the chances are very likely he'll start at one of those inside backer jobs. So all he got is $1.15 million, 1.01 base, which is the veteran minimum, no guaranteed money, which is the shocker. So I know some people suggested, why didn't he just wait closer to training camp? Yeah, and he probably could have got the same money. But remember, once you have the draft, the chances of you getting a starting job are slim because teams fill out their dance card, so to speak.
Right.
So his base is 1.08 million. To get to 1.15 million, he had to hit his $25,000 workout bonus, which you would think he would have. And then he does get, if he's active game one, he can't be inactive game one. If he's active, if he's on the active roster, the 46, he gets $50,000. So he has the potential to make as much as 1.15 million, which is not a lot of money, but this is kind of the way the league saw it. And I'm sure his agent knew this at the combine, who was interested and who was not, because teams that, they kind of show their hand. They want to have a discussion with the agent once you get closer to the open negotiating period, which is 3 days before the bell goes off for the full opening of free agency. And Morrow signed here. He's got an excellent chance to be a starting linebacker on a 1-year deal.
So to your point, I absolutely, after thinking it through, got what you were saying, is that he could have signed elsewhere for, say, $300,000 guaranteed. But if he didn't think he was going to start and he got cut, all he gets is $300,000. Here with the Eagles, as you just mentioned, you get no guaranteed money, but you got a pretty good chance to be on the 53 all year long, if not being a starter, and make that 1.08 million base salary. So you trade no guaranteed money for a really good shot at making the 1.08 million that you may not have seen if you went somewhere else and got cut and only got your 300,000 guaranteed or whatever. So I do get that point. I will say, though, that one of the things that we tell our listeners all the time is the contract tells you what the league thinks of you, right? But it doesn't matter how big your name once was, for the most part, right? Yeah. It's really hard if this is the case where, even after a year with the Bears where he made a lot of tackles, which doesn't always mean you're a good player, where there just wasn't that much opportunity, it's hard for me to believe he's going to come to this Eagles defense and play well enough to keep the job all year long. I mean, this is sort of like what we saw with Eric Wilson, who came to the Eagles and he was not really wanted by the Vikings or anyone else. And he came on a 1-year deal that didn't have a whole lot of guaranteed money. And all those flaws that you knew about Eric Wilson that you were hoping disguised were not disguised. And so the same thing here with Nick Morrow. He's light. He's sort of one-dimensional in that regard. He wasn't really wanted. And what's helping him right now is that after Nakobe Dean, the Eagles just don't have another proven guy who's played like him. But he's literally one other guy sort of playing pretty well, or him going out there and not playing well from a change being made. And I think that $50,000 bonus just for being active on the first game kind of tells you the Eagles don't even know if he's going to be your day one, game one starter.
Well,
because there's an incentive there for that.
Right. And we'll see what they do with Ben Van Sumeren, who we'll get to his contract in a second. He got a pretty good guarantee. He's an undrafted free agent, and he's also bigger physically than the other guys. But Morrow, at least, is the veteran of the group, and that gives him, obviously, a major advantage over Ellis. But Ellis is also bigger physically, and he's flashed a little bit. They love him in special teams. I don't know that they're going to open the job, but I would say, on your point, I'll take this a little further. I don't think his margin for error, Morrow's, is very large. I think it's small because he's on a 1-year deal. There's no guaranteed money. And those contracts tell you it's a prove-it deal. Now, again, he is the veteran. He's the clear favorite. That's not in question. The question is, as you mentioned, can he keep the job? And that's going to be that of many training camp situations, not particularly a battle, but keep an eye on. Let's see how these guys do. Would it surprise you at all if Ellis beat him out?
It would not surprise me at all, but I still think the likeliest scenario is that the starter next to Nakobe Dean just isn't with the team yet. I just think that there's another move to be made.
Okay.
Whether it's after a cut down day, whether it's in the middle of the camp like Ronald Darby, it's not going to be a big move. Although I don't know, some people would consider like a guy like Patrick Queen to be a huge move. I wouldn't. I don't think that's going to happen. But I just think that there's going to be a move made to get them a little bit more of a veteran linebacker. We'll see. But certainly we know they're not going to give up a whole lot for whoever that person
is. They don't invest in that position.
No, not at all.
It's one though. It is one though, and that I was going to get to that. Certainly by the end of training camp, they're going to know, because that's where Darby came in many years ago with a trade with Buffalo. CJ Gardner-Johnson. What other ones have they made over the years?
In the middle of camp, they got
just
Cody,
by the anything by the
Cody
before
Parkey.
the season started.
Wasn't Jake Elliott also similarly acquired that way? Was from the Bengals practice squad? Wasn't he signed up the Bengals?
Yeah, but I'm just talking about before the season starts.
Yeah, I thought that was going into the season. Was it not?
Well, no, but they signed in week 2.
That's right. That's right. Well, who'd they go in with? Caleb Sturgis, maybe?
Sturgis, right. The Sturgis rally, yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who else they got in the middle of camp in that regard.
Well, and it did just before. I'm just talking just before the season starts.
Right before the season.
Right. It could be anywhere from the start of camp.
I remember. Do you remember the safety from the Browns who I predicted would be on the 53-man roster before? What was his name? This goes back a long time. He was God, it has to be like 2008, 2009. I looked around the league and I thought, what Andy Reid connection does he have where he'll get a safety? They badly needed a safety. The guy played at Iowa State. I can't remember his name.
I vaguely remember this.
He was out of football. He was like a garbage man for a little while. Then he was with the Browns. Yeah, it was a good story. Guy? I can't remember his name. It's like one of my great accomplishments. I put him on my 53-man roster.
I got it. This guy played at Georgia. He was a big-time hitter, Sean Jones.
No, I know who you're talking about. That was the tall guy, but it wasn't Sean Jones. Same year, though, I think.
What's that?
Same year, possibly, but no, that wasn't. It was a no-name guy.
Who's that?
It was a sort of a no-name guy.
I don't. Sean Jones is the only one I remember because I was so excited, but he had knee problems.
Yeah,
the dude could hit. He kind of fizzled. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't. If you give me enough time, I'll find it. David Sims.
He was a backup safety.
Yes.
What was the attraction?
The Eagles were so deficient at safety that year that they needed anybody who could play the position. And he had a really nice camp with the Browns. He had like 3 interceptions. Shermer was coaching the Browns at the time, so I'm sure Shermer and Andy were talking. Told him they weren't going to keep the guy. So the Eagles wound up, I think, claiming him off waivers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I do remember him. Yeah, but
I'm sorry. They traded for him. That's right. They traded for him.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Was he on the team in the regular? He was on the. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he started a game that year against the Colts, if I'm not mistaken.
He
was like their number 3 safety.
Was it his last year? Andy's last year, 2012.
It very well could have been. That's how deficient the team was.
I'm looking at that roster right now. No wonder they were so bad. But anyway, okay.
But the upshot was I predicted him. I put him on my 53-man roster projection, even though he was with the Browns at the time, because I just kind of figured the Eagles were going to look at him. And sure enough, it was 2012. Yeah, sure enough, they traded for him.
So I remember you telling me that.
Yeah,
that was a great
call. People thought I cheated and had inside.
Exactly, right. No, that's some pretty good stuff. Man, I'm looking at this roster. You want to know why Andy got canned? Look how bad this roster was.
Go ahead.
We should talk to Yvonne about this next time we talk to Jason. It's just I mean, I look at this thing, and Kirk Coleman actually was a much better player after he left the Eagles.
Yeah, he was just not a good wide 9 safety.
Yeah. Namdi was awful. DRC was inconsistent. Akeem Jordan. D'Amico was obviously very good. Derek Landy was Mr. Wide 9. He put up a ton of sacks. Cullen Jenkins, he wasn't happy here. Babin was a Wide 9 expert. He was the guy put up numbers. My guy Philip Hunt. What's that?
Philip Hunt. Yep. No interest in run defense for Jason.
Yeah, Jason Babin, right. BG, of course. Darryl Tapp is now I think he's an assistant coach with the Niners.
Now everybody loved Darryl Tapp. He was a great guy.
Good dude.
People loved him, but he was like a high 2nd-round pick. And I if you go look at his career stats, did he ever have like more than 5 sacks in a year? I feel like everybody always was waiting for him to be great, and he just never was.
No, he was a sub-package rusher.
Yeah. Really good guy though.
Good dude. Yeah, and then Jaquan Jarrett obviously never worked out.
No.
Do you remember? I don't know if we've ever mentioned the immortal Stanley Havili.
The last running back. He was a running back / fullback. I think the last player for the Eagles to play fullback, Stanley Havili.
Might have been, and then Damaris Johnson, who would be better for the Texans. And Demetrius Bell. It was
Karl Malone's unrecognized son, I believe.
Right. Yep. Dallas Reynolds, Andy's guy from BYU. Dennis Kelly, and you love that trade. I'll admit, it was the exact opposite. We thought they got what was his name?
Dorial Green Beckham.
Right, DGB, who was awful here.
Yes.
And Dennis Kelly, who he technically is not even retired yet. It's unbelievable.
Has more touchdown catches than DGB over the last 5 years.
You love that stat. Humiliating. And his brother Tim is the OC for the Titans.
Oh, okay. Tim Kelly.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
They look really alike if you look at them up close. And then before we move on, because folks, we're having fun. It's June, so hang up with us. We'll get back to this. The immortal Trent Edwards, who got on the roster due to one amazing preseason game.
Yes, and a Mike Kafka injury. Yep, crazy. Yep. Oh man! All right, so let's finish off linebackers because we went to Nick Morrow. First of all, let me remind everybody that Inside the Birds is presented by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. So Nakobe Dean enters year 2 on a 4-year, 3rd-round pick contract, which means his base salary is under $1 million.
Correct. So the guaranteed money all comes from signing bonus. So the bases are not guaranteed. 941, 975, so just under $1 million. And then Van Sumeren, he,
God bless you.
Yes, he has got some size. He's a big tackler coming out of college. They really did like him. They, of the $780,000 he gets, $130 is fully guaranteed at signing. That is why last year, if you just compare situations, like Josh Jobe made it. Josh Jobe was fully guaranteed just about $130,000 last year. He didn't really play, but that was a big reason why he was on the roster. Now Jobe's guaranteed money is gone. It was all in year 1. Same with Van Sumeren. So that's something to keep an eye on. Let's see how he does in training camp. But the money sometimes will tell you whether they're going to make it or not.
Yeah, I like Van Sumeren to make the 53, mainly because there's not a whole lot of depth at linebacker, but not to play alongside Dean by week 6 or 7. More to be a really good special teamer. He runs really well. He tested well. It's I was told his linebacker instincts aren't great. He needs a lot of work as a linebacker. So I'd be sort of surprised if he was able to win himself some playing time on defense. To me, you look at Van Sumeren, you look at your other special teams linebacker, Sean Bradley, and you might say, well, I'm on year 4 now, Bradley. I know what he is. There seems maybe we have some upside here with Van Sumeren. But either way, whoever we keep is going to be one of our core special teamers.
See, that's why tackles you got to be careful with, because you hear a guy had this many tackles, but when the tape shows you, okay, yeah, he had a lot of tackles, but he wasn't a short tackler. There's a difference, or he's not always in the right spot. But they obviously like something to guarantee that kind of money. We'll learn a little bit more about him. But so right now, if you look at the inside backers, we'll move on to corner and safety. Morrow, Dean, Ellis is 3, Van Sumeren is 4. Sean Bradley, if he makes it, will be special teams 5, and Davion Taylor obviously has a long shot to make it. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and for those who want to understand this, now Davion Taylor was a 3rd-round pick, but he's no longer on a 3rd-round pick contract because he was cut last year and then brought back on a what do you call it? What do you call those contracts when you're brought back to the practice squad? Practice squad contract. And then you sign a futures deal in the offseason, right?
Yeah, so he signed a reserve/future deal, so that's a 3-year deal.
Right.
And there's no guaranteed money. It's called a make good contract. If he wants to get paid, he has to be on the roster. Chances are very slim. They drafted him to be a nickel linebacker. With Schwartz, and that was their hope. And he just didn't have the instincts. He was very raw, good kid. He just doesn't have it. He just didn't have it, and it hasn't really changed. So he's got an uphill battle. Wish him luck. But even though they're not at this, other than Dean, who is definitely going to be there, and there's certainly a wonderful opportunity for anyone to push for a roster spot at inside linebacker, Taylor just doesn't have the instincts. That's been the word in the scouting community, and it's hard to get that if you didn't have it coming in.
Yeah, definitely. All right, that'll finish off the stack linebacker section. We'll get into cornerback in a second. By the way, for those who, and there was a great question in our Patreon Ask ITB live stream about whether or not players get paid when they're inactive, and Adam gave a really good lengthy answer on how that process works. So that's another reason you want to join our Patreon community and subscribe and watch that breakdown. Adam explained it all and did an excellent job. So kudos to you on that, Adam. We'll get into cornerback in a second. I want to remind everybody it's Ocean Casino Resort's 5th birthday this summer. They can't wait to celebrate with you. So join Ocean for exciting promotions and sweepstakes, headline entertainment, the best day life and nightlife lineup in AC, the debut of the birthday bar, exclusive local collabs and partnerships, commemorative 5th birthday merchandise, and so much more. Don't miss stunning fireworks and unique events all summer long. Ocean Rewards members will enjoy over $5 million in gifts and prizes. So be sure to sign up for an Ocean Rewards card to get in on the fun next time you visit. All right, cornerbacks. Oh, the fun of Darius Slay's contract.
It's really interesting. Him and Bradbury, Slay got more money, but the structure is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the option bonus numbers aren't like within $500,000 of each other. I would love to. I know we wouldn't get access to them because they're not allowed to be interviewed. But the guys who put the contracts together, I just love. I would love to know how they come up with these numbers.
Yeah, no, it's a good. I wonder if you had to give once you signed Bradbury, and then once you determined you were bringing Slay back, if you had to make good on giving him a slightly more money because he's the better player. For example, do you remember when Vinny Curry signed that deal with the Eagles before 2017? He got a big extension, right? Because he was up 4 years in. And then very quickly, the team turned around and redid Brandon Graham's contract because at the time Vinny did his extension, he was given more money on an annual basis than Brandon Graham was making. And Brandon Graham had been an accomplished player and, been with the team longer. And they needed to not have Brandon Graham making less than Vinny Curry for obvious reasons. And I wonder, once they determined that Darius Slay was coming back on both sides, if they felt like they needed to just make sure that Slay was making slightly more than Bradbury, because as good of a year as Bradbury had last year, Slay is still, a 5-time Pro Bowl cornerback.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, it's a little subjective, but you're right. Slay's clearly the better player. In fact, think about this. Bradbury was cut by the Giants.
Right. It's amazing. Isn't it amazing to think that?
But that's, and look, I know he could have had a deal with the Texans, but they couldn't work it out before the Giants cut him. But the fact of the matter is, for him to revive his career is just an amazing story, and give their Eagles coaches credit, and obviously Bradbury the most credit. But anyway, so let's get over to Slay. So everybody knows the story by now. They were going to cut him. They told him with a post-June 1 designation. Some hours later, on the same day, they worked out an extension. I know I asked Avant, does he remember anything so crazy before? When we talked to him a couple weeks ago, I don't remember exactly his answer. But
you won't find too many scenarios like that.
That's my point. I was going to ask you that. Do you remember in all years on the beat on contracts, a player told? Look, I know players get told all the time, okay, if we can't trade you, we're going to cut you. And every once in a while, it gets reported that that a player got cut, and it winds up they didn't get cut because the team didn't call the reporter back, or vice versa, and the player winds up getting traded. But this one was so bizarre because they were at loggerheads on his contract.
Yeah, I don't remember anything ever similar.
Yeah, I don't know. I just can't think of it. But anyway, so Slay resigned. You could. It's really a renegotiation, a rare renegotiation. So it's for 3 seasons. Each year's been redone through 25, 4-year void through 2029, 3 years, $42 million, $24.5 million fully guaranteed at signing. Now, remember, on Slay's contract, his average per season was much higher, but he had no guaranteed money left. So that was the trade-off. He knows by structure, he will be with the team for 2 years no matter what happens. 3rd year, he probably won't. He would have to ball out, and then it's just so unlikely at 34, 35 years old. It's just very few corners in the NFL now at that age. But what would happen is he's got an option bonus in 2025 that's not guaranteed, $16.1 million. They would just he probably would come back on a 1-year deal at less money because, again, it's just so rare to be 34, 35 years old and to come back at that position is just your legs. Players have told us over the years, your legs are gone by 33 pretty much. You just can't run as much. And that's why a lot of guys move to safety. Right. So Slay got that. He's got a 2-year structure. And look, he got a nice deal. I give Drew Rosenhaus credit and Howie Roseman credit. They found a middle ground. They've done so many deals together over the years. And Slay's got a real good chance to retire as an Eagle.
Oh, I would think so. And I don't think he's the type that has safety in his future. So I would think 2 more years and then, we'll see where he's at. Bradbury, I might be able to see it from a little bit bigger the way I could see him maybe being a safety the last few years of his career.
Possibly. So he did technically resign. He definitely resigned for 3 years with a 4-year void, same structure as Slay. 3 years, $38.1 million, $20 million fully guaranteed at signing. A 2-year structure. Now, it's just like Slay, and this is what I was joking about. His option bonus, I'm going to double check this, is higher. It's $16.6 million, not guaranteed in year 3. I just know from talking to other teams, I know you heard something similar. This is the guy who's going to have the bullseye on his back from other clubs. The Eagles' pass rush was so incredible. He didn't get picked on a lot. I do wonder if this is going to be a situation where, okay, teams, if they can protect, this is where the teams are going to go and seeing how he holds up. And I get it, math carry deliver, it really worked. But apparently the tape showed that he gave up some space and teams they didn't have enough time and they didn't get after him as much as they thought they could.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head. The pass rush helped him. The match carry deliver system, the fact that he's not always defending the boundary, so he doesn't always have to see the speed receiver. There's a whole lot of things, but the 49ers made it clear that they felt that they could attack him if they could protect their quarterback, which they didn't. So that threw that in a wrench. But they felt that they saw something on tape that made Bradbury the guy that they wanted to try to beat down the field. So I imagine some other teams will try to do that. And again, they're facing a lot better quarterbacks this year and some really gifted wide receivers. So Bradbury's gonna have to earn his money.
Yeah, there's no, because it's what's it after the bye? They play the Bills and the Chiefs.
Bills, Chiefs, Seahawks, Dallas, and the Giants. So I mean, yeah, I think I'm missing somebody in there too. Bills, Chiefs,
but those first 3,
yeah,
the Seahawks, Geno Smith is slinging it, and they're really deep at receiver for a change.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be interesting, man. And you got 2 older corners. It's not ideal, but knock on wood that they stay healthy. They're smart, they're savvy, they're tough. But it's the guy that teams are going to go after is Bradbury, and the Eagles are not deep at corner now. So we've gone over those 2. Slay and Bradbury.
Niners. I'm sorry. It's Chiefs, Bills, Niners.
Okay, now
Cowboys, we'll see about
Seahawks. Okay, we'll see about Brock Mania and see if it holds up for a full season. See if his elbow does. But okay, Vontae Maddox. Now, this is just the way the structure was to his contract. So this year, veteran minimum 1.08 base. He's got $500,000 in per game roster bonuses, $29,412 per game. To get it, he has to actually play. He actually has to be active that game. He has to be active.
Interesting. That is very interesting, given his injury history.
Right, and I wonder, on your point, I'm assuming that's what they put it in. Now, here's where it gets really fascinating, because I didn't know this until we started getting this information. Next year is when you start looking at, if he's hurt again this year, they could potentially move on. His cap number goes from just over $4 million to just over $10 million in 2024. That's a big cap number for a slot corner. I know he's talented. He's been a good story of development, but the guy's hurt a lot. Now, they don't have his replacement potential. At least we don't know that yet. So that's something to keep an eye on for 2024.
Feels like this could be Avonte Maddox's final year with the Eagles, unless he really balls out. And then if he does, then they're going to have to redo it, because they're probably going to not want him with a cap number that high next year. So this is this is an important year for Avonte Maddox, both for those roster, those game bonuses, right? Per game bonuses, and just for securing the future. But you make a great point. They really don't have, unless we get to see Zach McPherson in that spot, they really don't have an heir apparent at that position.
I mean, he filled in OTAs for Maddox, but that doesn't mean he'll be the backup slot corner. We know he can do it because he did it in college. And if you look at the rest of the roster, sure, he projects to be that, but we'll see, because when you only have 6 OTA practices, you don't want to make a lot of assumptions. You just have to see how these carry over. And then Greedy Williams, who should be, not a lot, but he should be their top outside corner if he makes the team. But when you look at these contracts, as you said earlier, contracts tell you a story. The guy had a major injury history with Cleveland. He's got length. He can move. 1 year, 1.8 million, 1.18 million, 500,000 is fully guaranteed at signing. He too has per game roster bonuses. 170K, 10,000 per game for total cash. If he hits all of them, it was 1.35 million. That's if he plays in every game, which history would show that probably won't happen, but he'll have incentive to do it. And plus, as Joe Banner's told us on our show over the years, he noticed it wasn't a study. This is a big reason why they like to let a lot of guys on 1 year deals on the final year of a contract, because they had a lot of an incentive. Sometimes these guys just ball out when they know they're up against it. And Williams has got a great opportunity to revive his career here.
Absolutely. I hope he stays healthy, because I really look forward to that competition playing itself out at training camp. All right, we'll finish off with safety first. I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto, so make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com. And on Twitter, they're at PHLSportsNation. Let's pause real quick for a word from some great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal. And if you have not yet, please subscribe to the Powder Blue podcast with myself and Phillies insider Frank Close. We do our weekly, sometimes more than once a week, podcasts on the Phillies, who are exciting us all with their very strange way of winning games. But it was nice to see Ranger Suarez ball out the other night.
He's incredible. And Brandon Marsh, they give what's the guy's name? Kevin Long.
Kevin Long, batting coach. Yeah.
Though I don't understand Real Muto. He's had an awful season. Saved like 2 weeks. He's been terrible at the plate. This
was like last year too, by the way. He got off to a terrible start and then all picked that up in July and August. So
they're maddeningly fun. I love watching the Phils, but I scratch my head sometimes. But before we get back to safety, which will close out the show, which is going to be fun to talk about. If you like baseball, and I'm not a big baseball guy, but I'm just fascinated by the Braves and how they mash the baseball.
Ugh.
You know, they're on pace for like 325 to 350 home runs this season.
There's not an easy out in that lineup, man.
It's crazy.
There really is. Even their backup catcher, Darno,
he's good.
Their starting catcher is pretty good. I mean, he's a threat to get a good big hit.
Wasn't he a Philly at one point?
Yes, he was. He was a Philly. He was a Met. I think he was when he was with the Phillies. Was a farmhand. Then he was with the Mets. I think he was part of the Mets World Series team in 2015. Then he went to, I want to say, Tampa,
LA,
and I
Dodgers,
can't remember if LA was in there, but he might have been in that too. Yeah,
their lineup is ridiculous. The Harris kid, who was bad when he was playing the Phillies earlier. He's playing well.
Yeah, I mean, between him and Acuna and Albies and Riley at third base and Olsen, who's really exploded. I mean, there's not an easy out in that lineup, and they can pitch too. I mean, they get what they deserve, man. That's why they're 20 games over 500.
Yep. How do you explain this? And then we'll get this back to the Eagles as we speak about this. Mm-hmm. There's just something about when the Phillies got themselves together in August and obviously September. There's something about momentum, and we've seen this. I would say though they won 4 straight titles. The Eagles did 01 through 04 on the last time anyone repeated in the NFC least. There's got to be something about camaraderie. And you know, as a beat guy, there's something about chemistry.
Yeah.
But then the Braves, who some would argue had a better roster, they got handled. The Phillies handled them in the playoffs. I know baseball's different than football, but there's got to be something to when you're feeling it. Did you notice when you were covering the Eagles then in 01 through 04?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, you were there later. I'm sorry. Wait, you were 08,
I
right?
started on 05.
Okay, 05. But you saw in 08 when they played the Cardinals in the championship game. But you were around all those really good teams, a lot of good teams with Andy, before it fell apart. Did you notice any momentum or something coming together?
So I remember in 2006 when, the year was going haywire, Donovan gets hurt, Jeff Garcia steps in. They play their first game on the road against Indianapolis. I believe it was a Monday night game. You know, uh, Everything's going wrong. They tried some kind of wide receiver option pass with Hank Baskett. He threw an interception. They lost that game, I think 24-7, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember.
The following week, and it was easy to count the Eagles out at that point because their schedule was, I believe, the following week they played Carolina Panthers on a Sunday night game. And then after that, it was 3 straight NFC East games on the road. So it was easy to just call the coroner on that season after that after Jeff Garcia's, debut loss against the Colts. But in typical Andy Reid fashion, they did play the following, I'm pretty sure, it was a Monday night game against the Panthers. If you remember, I can remember this clear as day. Jeff Garcia threw a touchdown in the back corner of the end zone to go ahead late in that game. The touchdown was to Reggie Brown, 40 yards. All right. And then Lito Shepherd ended that game with an interception. I think he had 2 picks in that game. If I'm not mistaken. I don't know why I remember this, but I'm pretty sure he had 2. I'll look it up in a second. No, he had 1. Dawkins had the other. That's what it was. But Lito ended the game. So they're playing the song. You remember Lito, and the link is going crazy. I mean, it was just a game against the Panthers were a good team. Remember, that was, one of their better teams, Jake Delhomme and everything. But they survived. They came back and won that game. The locker room was electric afterward. All of a sudden, they had new life because they went from being 5-6 to 6-6, and then they went and marched through that NFC East schedule, all road games. They beat Washington the next week, 21-19. They beat the Giants the week after that, and then they went down and beat the Cowboys on Christmas Day, 23-7. Then came home to beat the Falcons. So they finished 10-6 and won the division. But to me, it all goes back to that Monday night game, that 40-yard pass from Garcia to Reggie Brown. I forget who the corner was. He was pretty good. They had a good corner back then. Was it the guy that went to Washington, that Gettleman? What was his name? Norman?
Tall guy, Josh.
Norman? Josh Norman? I could be wrong, but he might, again, my memory is only as good as, it can be at this age, but I've got almost every other detail of that game down. But yeah, that to me was a major, and you could feel it. You just felt the swing of momentum with that. And then obviously to win those 3 NFC East games was pretty big. So yeah, that's the time that I can remember it. And then I would say the 2008 team, Adam, remember when Donovan got benched and then he got it restored? Then the following Thursday night was Thanksgiving against the Arizona Cardinals. And they trashed the Cardinals that game.
Well, that was Kurt Warner's worst game as a professional. In fact, this is why they changed it. I know Joe Banner told us he called the league when remember the Eagles had to play at Seattle on a short week. The Vince Young game in 2011, maybe. I think.
Yeah, I remember that.
So what Joe said is that how in the world could you send a team from the East Coast on a short week to travel 3 time zones? They're playing on Thursday out west. Of course, they got smoked.
Yep.
So the Cardinals played on Sunday. I don't know where they played, but they're, because Arizona still, I think most, if not all the year, they're still 3-hour time difference from here. I don't think they do daylight savings time. So anyway, they got smoked here on Thursday. Warner was terrible, and it's just to ask a team to do that is just ridiculous. So they stopped doing that, thankfully. Now going back to your point before we close this on safeties. The corners then were pretty good. Remember Chris Gamble was a first rounder, I think, from Ohio State.
That's who it was. It wasn't Norman. It was Gamble. That's who I think it was. Yeah,
good player, Chris Gamble. Then Ken Lucas, who came over from the Seahawks, and Richard Marshall was the second round. I remember him. Boy, they were good at cornerback there.
Right. And by the way, Lito picked off a pass that was intended for Keyshawn Johnson. That's how far we got back here.
Wow.
Yeah, and I just remember playing the song Lido over the loudspeakers and everybody. It was just an amazing moment for the team. All right, let's get it back to safety. That was fun. That was a little fun walk down memory lane. We'll finish this off with safeties. Terrell Edmunds, big signing in the offseason name-wise, but the money, again, tells you that there were just not a high demand for this guy, Adam. 5 years starter safety. He never lost his job. He just never played like a first round pick.
No, his tape is very ordinary. If you looked at him, you would say he plays like a third or fourth round pick. That's what was explained to me. In so many words, it's like he's the kind of guy you'll probably be looking to replace him. And he's fairly durable. He's not a bad player. He's average in coverage. He's an average player. Nothing special about him. He just never played up to his height, weight, speed. But sometimes when guys change schemes or change teams like he's doing now, sometimes they're better. They get a new lease on life, and maybe he's better in this scheme here. Now, 1 year, $1.33 million, $600K fully guaranteed at signing. Here's the difference between his contract and Justin Evans. They both got the same cash, except for one thing. His per game roster bonuses are more money. $670,000 in per game roster bonuses. If he gets all of them, he'll make a maximum of $2 million. That's it. And then Justin Evans, same cash in terms of 1 year, $1.33 million. Edmonds and Evans got $600K fully guaranteed at signing. But his per game roster bonuses, now this is important because this guy's been nothing but hurt. He didn't play in a game for 3 years. He was with teams, but he wound up not playing over a 3-year period. And he's only getting $260,000 in per game roster bonuses, $15,294 per game. And the max cash, if he hits all of them, would be $1.5 million. And again, you have to be active. Right. You have to be active for a game to get that money.
So this is the part of the NFL contract world that I think sometimes just doesn't make sense, but it's just about, demand, supply, demand, and who wants you, right? I mean, Terrell Edmonds might be an ordinary safety who plays like a third round pick. However, he has started 5 years on a Steelers defense that was always among the top, right? I mean, he's got a lot of experience. Somehow he gets the same amount of guaranteed money as a guy who missed 3 consecutive years of football in Justin Evans. And no, I'm not disrespecting Justin Evans. I'm just saying it's amazing that Justin Evans could get the same amount of fully guaranteed money. The tape must show you that when Justin Evans is healthy, the athleticism really shines through. I mean, he plays like I think he was a second round pick, wasn't he?
He's actually a better coverage player.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great athlete when he's healthy.
Yeah. In fact, Cosell talked about that when we talked to Greg after the draft, when we were just touching on the new players and how they fit in. And Greg talked about it coming out of Texas A&M. I think it was Texas A&M. He was a big time player. That's why he was a second round pick.
Yeah.
And the Bucs thought they had the next great safety, and he just could not stay healthy, as you discussed.
Yep.
Edmonds is just a guy who's well built, high character. You might remember his dad, Farrell Edmonds, a longtime tight end in the league. And these are guys who have a wonderful opportunity here. Now, on your point earlier in the show, this will come down to them adding another safety. If by mid-August, if they don't see what they like, that's when. If there's a good veteran safety still out in the market on the street or a guy they could trade for, that's when that could happen, because you gotta be better than this. I mean, I understand, like, sometimes these guys ball out. Maybe Evans stays on the field, stays healthy. He finally is back to normal, and maybe Edmonds plays better than they ever had. Then they don't have to do anything. But this is the position. You talk about inside linebacker. This is the position. I could certainly see them adding another guy. And I know they've looked into it, because they have, in terms of, they have an emergency list. Each team has one, but they're going to go to training camp with these guys. They're going to see how it works out. But I would not be surprised at all if they added someone if they don't like what they see.
100%. And just to finish it off, obviously, Reed Blankenship is in year 2 of a 3-year deal that you get when you're a undrafted free agent. So he is making beans in comparison to what even Edmonds and Evans are set to make, right? And then Sidney Brown is a 3rd round pick. So he's the first. He gets a signing bonus, which is not very big.
Right.
And then smaller yearly annual salaries.
All right, a couple things
that's
here.
Basically it. Go ahead.
Yep, Reed Blankenship. Let's go back to him as you mentioned him. It's crazy that Josh Jobe got a way bigger guarantee than Reed Blankenship. But Reed Blankenship started some games. It was obviously a big factor. He only got $55K guaranteed last year.
Wow.
His signing bonus was only $5,000. They guaranteed $50,000 of his base salary. That's all gone now. That was in year 1. So, not that we know he's going to be on the team, but he's making, on your point, less than $1 million, $870K. So he's another part of that group at safety. They're just gonna see what they got. I mean, they have enough bodies But the question is not about the depth. The question is how good are these guys? And they're not going to know until they get there. Right now, Edmonds and Blankenship will be the starters. The only way Blankenship will start is if Sidney Brown's not ready. If he's not ready, then he'll be a backup and Blankenship will start. And also, again, we'll see about Evans. And if they're not happy with any of these guys, they'll be adding someone.
Yeah, and of course, Kayvon Wallace in the final year of his rookie deal, which was a 4-year deal for a 4th-round pick. Another guy.
On him, now there's no guaranteed money. All of his guaranteed money came in a signing bonus. That's long gone. Not that this is a lot of money, but his non-guaranteed salary is $1.01 million. We'll see. I mean, it's a 4th safety. I mean, it's not too much money, a 4th or 5th safety special teamer, but that's just one where I think to me he needs to earn that. And that's where if you really look at it, you got Edmonds, Blankenship, Brown. Yeah, I mean, there are 4 guys who should be on the team. Edmonds, Blankenship, Brown, and Evans. They're your 4. And we'll see if they keep a 5th.
All right, great stuff. Next time you hear from us, we'll be joined by Greg Cosell, and we will be previewing NFC East teams. Looking forward to doing that. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.